Welcome to the podcast that will teach you how to successfully invest in and build steady streams of passive income from the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Veteran real estate investors Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart from Mobile Home Park Academy will personally share with you the valuable lessons they've learned along their journey as mobile home park investors, so that you too can learn how to build massive cash flow and huge profits from this extremely lucrative niche. So without further ado, let's welcome your hosts for today's show, Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart.
Welcome, guys and gals, to the Mobile Home Park Academy's weekly podcast, where we'll provide all the information that you need to know to successfully locate, negotiate, close on, and make huge profits from the lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. I'm your host, Kevin Bupp, and in today's show, we're going to be speaking with mobile home park owner and operator, Andrew Keel. Now, Andrew is the owner of Keel Team, LLC, and his team currently manages 16 manufactured housing communities across 6 states. His expertise is in turning around undermanaged manufactured housing communities by utilizing proven systems to maximize the occupancy while reducing operating costs. He specializes in bringing in homes to fill vacant lots, implementing utility build-back programs, and improving overall management and operating efficiencies, all of which significantly boosts the asset value and net operating income of the community. So, guys, I'm incredibly excited to have a candid conversation with Andrew. It's been too long since we had him on last time. I'm excited to talk about the variety of industry-related topics, some of the crazy times that we find ourselves in today. But before we get on to it, I just have a few quick housekeeping items I'd like to run through. First and foremost, I tend to forget to mention this on a regular basis, so I'm going to mention it here now. We're always in acquisition mode here at Sunrise Capital Investors. Always looking for good opportunities, good deals. And if you have an opportunity, either maybe you're looking for a big fat finder's fee that we'd love to pay you on, or maybe you're looking for an operational partner, JV partner, capital partner, what have you. Love to chat with you about what it is you have and see if it might be an opportunity of working together. You can simply go to our website, sunrisecapitalinvestors.com, and send us a message through the contact page. And just include some basic details and include your contact information. I'll be back in touch with you. Next up here, I want to remind you of the free gift that we offer to all listeners who take the time to leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. We will give you the exact cold call script that we use in our very own mobile home park business. We have purchased about half of our $75 million portfolio from our cold calling efforts. And so I'd say if you're serious about getting started in this business, or maybe you've got a couple communities where you're looking to take it to the next level, then you really need to be cold calling park owners directly, and this script will put you on your path to success. To redeem this gift, just go and send an email over to gift@mobilehomeparkacademy.com and tell us who you are and what screen name that you use to leave that review, and we'll send that gift your way. And now, guys, without further ado, I'd like to bring on my good friend and mobile home park operator extraordinaire, Andrew Keel. Andrew, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time. I had you on the show. It's probably been over a year now, year and a half, maybe even closer to 2 years. I know time flies. And I remember the very first time that we met, Andrew. We met, we had spoken a few times on the phone, but we met at MHI. I think it was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3 now. Again, I lose track of time here. Back then, I think you had purchased 1 community, and now you're up to 16. So you've grown by leaps and bounds. You're making lots of big things happen, and you've become a very integral part of the mobile home park industry. And so just kudos to all your success that you've had. It's been great to see you grow. And so super excited to have you back here and share some of your insights that you've learned over the years with our listeners. But before we get into the nitty gritty, for those folks that might not be familiar with you or who you are, maybe just take a few minutes, tell us a little bit about your background and ultimately how you got into the mobile home park space.
Definitely. And thank you for that introduction. So I started out actually flipping houses around the Central Florida area and wanted to, ultimately build more consistent cash flow. I was sending out letters, doing bandit signs, the traditional, fix and flip model and wholesaling model. And I, through a yellow letter that I sent out, actually got a lead on a couple of mobile homes in the Ocala, Florida area that were in a mobile home park. And I had never come across these before, but I knew that I could make some money on them because the guy only wanted $2,200 cash for both of these 1995 vinyl sided shingle roof homes that were in decent shape. So I got on YouTube and I started Googling how to make money with mobile homes, and lots of funny stuff came up, and came across this guy named Lonnie Scruggs, who I ended up buying his book, Deals on Wheels, and ultimately, diving in, and I did almost 20 of those individual mobile home deals where I would buy them, fix them up a little bit, and then sell them on contract. So I started there. That was my entry into the manufactured housing space. And through that, I met some park owners and ultimately wanted to get into owning, the entire park, and didn't know what my first step would be. So I went to, the MHU boot camp. I went and did some additional seminars, and ultimately just started calling park owners, and ended up finding a deal in Edwardsville, Illinois. I ended up contacting some of the people I met at the MHU boot camp, and they ended up being my first investors in that first acquisition. Since then, I've done syndications where I've brought together a group of investors to purchase properties, and it's been a good road. I would say our niche is in the value add space. Buying properties less than 100 units that are 60 to 70% occupied. Working on infill, billing back for utilities, and other methods to increase the net operating income of the communities. And that's been our niche, and it's been great.
Fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And just to give some context, what year was it that you bought that very first community?
That was in June of 2017.
Okay. So we're talking less than 3 years ago. That's awesome, buddy. Yeah. That's awesome. Kudos to all your success, man. That's quite a feat. Not just purchasing one, but then ultimately scaling your business. I always like to say that in this industry, buying one there's challenges with it, right? It's not easy by any means. If it was, everyone would be doing it. But buying that first one has its challenges, but they're easily overcome. Easy to overcome. Buying the second one poses some additional challenges. Additional bandwidth needed. And then the third one, that's when you start getting stretched a little bit, and it's still exciting. You're still pretty much a solopreneur at that point in time. It's very hard to to hire staff, what have you, from the revenues produced from 2 or 3 smaller communities. And then I feel like a lot of operators, they hit a wall, right? They hit a wall to where they've only got so much of their own time. They don't necessarily maybe have enough revenue to hire those key folks that they might need to scale their business. Maybe they've run out of their own capital. They have to start considering syndicating capital from outside investors, what have you. And so talk to me about that period of time that, the proverbial wall that maybe you didn't hit it, but you realized that in order to scale, you had to do X, Y, and Z to get there. When was that period of time? And ultimately, how did you overcome those barriers?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really had to do with hiring good people. I got very lucky early on when I needed to make my first hire. I hired, he was actually a friend of mine that was working at a software firm, and he was like a project manager at this sports marketing software firm that was developing software for like event management. And he was working with developers, and it was basically managing what they were doing, fixing different glitches in the software and so forth. And he was just underappreciated and was tired of it, and he'd been there a while. So I met him at the gym one night and said, hey dude, like, this is going to sound crazy. I know you don't really get what I do. I'm in the mobile home park space, but we have the opportunity to grow over here, and I'd love to bring you on. So he early on, I didn't have the funds and the ability to recruit, and pay, really high salaries and things like that. So he agreed to take a pay cut and come work with me. And, it's just been one of the best things I ever did, because it enabled us to grow so much quicker, and to have that person you can rely on and fully trust has just been so paramount in our growth. And since then, I've been able to, acquire some additional employees that work with us that are great people, and we have a good culture. So I would say that that's a big part of how I've grown to where we are today. In addition to that, my personal expenses for where I live, my personal expenses, I have been a big fan of just keeping those very, very low, so that I can reinvest everything. And that's what I've been doing for the past really 5 years is, every big win that we've had, we've just reinvested into the business and continued to be able to hire more people. Where some people would get a big win, they get a sale or a refinance. We saw that as an opportunity to hire someone to grow the business. So that's what we've done. And some people say, hey, you might have hired a little too quickly, but I'm looking long term. I'm looking 12 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That's what I'm looking at when I hire people. It's not about, the numbers today. It's about the numbers down the line.
Yeah, I can promise you from owning businesses pretty much my entire adult life, real estate and other, non-real estate related businesses, that it's always better to be ahead of the curve or proactive in the hiring stage and possibly hiring someone before you really need them. And it might stress your payroll a little bit than actually being on the reactive side. And so I think you made the right decision of reinvesting in your business. And, another thing another point that you've made there that I want to make sure that all the listeners are absolutely clear on, especially if you're just getting started here, is that this is, there's money to be made here. But if you've got, a grandeur vision of actually growing a business, and what I mean by a business is not just owning one or two mobile home parks, which, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you can make very, very good money just by owning one or two parks. You don't necessarily have to bring partners and what have you. You create a really solid foundation for you and your family, right? And a solid financial future. However, if you got that grandeur vision of actually building a larger company and owning multiple assets in multiple states, there's some delayed gratification there typically. And we've experienced the same thing as we've grown our company over the last couple of years. And so I want to make sure that no one has the confusion that just because Andrew's out there, he's got 16 communities or 19 what have you, that he's not putting the money back in, and he's not Mr. Rich Guy sitting up on the throne. He's doing really well for himself, but it takes a lot of time and energy and determination to get where he's at today. And I'm sure you feel the same way, that you've got a lot of growing to do, right? You Definitely. Guys are nowhere near where you want to be, and you're still looking for those, those different growth stages that you're going to hit here in the coming years. And so with that being said, I love to talk about, one other aspect of the operational side of your business before we get into what I think a lot of folks are thinking of today, right? COVID-19 and this pandemic that we're dealing with day by day. We're following the news and we're following the significant changes that are happening, not just across the country but across the world. And so I definitely want to go down that rabbit hole with you. But before we get there, I want to talk about the scaling side of your business, but more importantly, the 6 different states that you're in, and I know that one of the struggles for us as we have been growing our company over the last couple of years is having assets that are located, in different markets, and not just a different market in the same state, but different states entirely, and actually having that logistical challenge of travel from one to the next. How have you guys been able to manage that process, and do you see a point in time where, again, another barrier gets put in your way to where you've got a scalability issue because you've got assets in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different states?
Yeah, great question. So with our properties that we own, there's really, they're spread all across the Midwest, all the way from Pennsylvania, like Western Pennsylvania. We have some in Ohio. We have some in Indiana, all the way to Western Iowa, and then all the way south to Northern Arkansas. So it's a big area that we have to cover, and we try to get to our properties at least once a quarter. So it's really kind of separated out into 3 trips. One, you'll go over and do the Ohio, Pennsylvania parks. That'll be one trip. The next trip, you'd go up into like the Illinois, Indiana parks. And you can also, get Iowa, and that's probably our biggest hit when we go up there is make a big trip out of it and hit all of those assets. And then we have the ones in the South, in Tennessee and Arkansas, that we'll make another trip out of. So, we are gaining scale as we continue to acquire properties, but as with anything, it is a little bit more difficult. If you need to get to Iowa and then you need to get to Pennsylvania in the same week,
Sure.
not many direct flights that go that way. So it's it could be trying at times for sure, but I think with good offsite management systems, we use a couple softwares One's called Slack and one's called Trello to help us stay on top of our property management. I think that has helped us tremendously, and having good on-site managers that communicate well. That's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking to Slack, we don't use Trello, but speaking to Slack, has been an absolute game changer in our business. And, so if those that are listening aren't familiar with it, it's an incredibly effective communication tool. We've got, various channels set up. So we've got channels with each one of our community managers. We've got leadership channels just for the, leadership folks in our company. We've got, but bottom line is it's by far my favorite. It's 10 times more efficient than standard email. It's just a very open form way for everyone within your company to communicate and stay abreast of what each other is doing. So again, just a game changer. If you're not familiar with it, definitely look into it. Even if you're just small today and it's just maybe in one community, you should look into it because it's a very scalable program that can grow with your company as you acquire more properties throughout these coming years. So with that being said, I want to switch the gears a little bit, Andrew. I want to talk about, the big news of today. And I mean, the big news as we sit here on
April
3rd, March 31st. Yeah, sorry. Look, I'm already getting ahead of myself. I'm very optimistic as far as how this is going to play out over the next coming month or so. So March 31st, we're basically one day before, it's kind of like D-Day if you're a landlord. This is, it's been the talk of the town throughout not just the mobile home park industry, but anyone that has a rental property that has a tenant in it, right? Unless it's Section 8, I think that's maybe the only folks that feel some insulation from what's potentially going to play out here over the coming months. And for the most part, there's been a moratorium placed on evictions across the country. Some state specific are much more strict than others. And the big fear, as a lot of folks have lost their jobs, they've been furloughed or just let go completely. Tons of service workers at restaurants have shut down, hotels have shut down. Just people are out of work. People are in a very dire time. And being a landlord, obviously, we expect to receive rent on a monthly basis, and that might be a little bit of a challenge, even with the financial stimulus that was put into place here a couple of days ago. Even with the boost in the unemployment benefits that are being put forth, there's still a lot of uncertainty as to what the coming months will hold and our ability as landlords to collect rent. And so I know that we've been strategically planning behind the scenes our company and trying to figure out not necessarily how to get in front of it, because I don't know if there's a way to get in front of it, but there's a way to be prepared and there's a way to not be prepared, right? And so we've been trying to figure out what worst case scenarios look like for us, and then strategically put some systems or protocols in place to not just address those worst case scenarios, but more importantly, to open up an open line of communication with our residents. Because this isn't just the landlord problem. This isn't just the tenant problem. This is a problem that starts from the top and goes all the way to the bottom. And so we're here to work together. We're here to find a solution as a team. This isn't one pitted against the other. And so, I'll surely share what our protocol is going to look like as we move forward. And I'm sure it will evolve as well as time goes on, depending on how this plays out. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, Andrew. I guess first and foremost, just what are your general thoughts of the time that we find ourselves in today? How are you feeling as a business owner? Are you optimistic? Are you a little scared? What have you? And then ultimately, what processes have you put into your own business to help, I guess, get through this, seemingly challenging time that we're facing?
Sure. So first off, I think with this pandemic, I totally think it's a black swan type of event. I think it's something that, is not going to happen every year. And it's something that's just kind of out of left field that we're faced with. I would say that I'm really happy that we're in affordable housing, during this time. I think that the demand for affordable housing will continue to be strong, as we've seen, even with people being furloughed and people out of work. We're still getting demand for our ads that are up to sell homes in our communities. So that, makes me feel confident in our business model. Some things that we are doing, there's really 5 things that we've done Number one, we had a rent increase that was due to start April 1st in a couple of our properties.
Mhm.
So we sent out a letter to our tenants just basically saying, hey, we're gonna pause that at this time until further notice, just to not add salt to the wound. Let's just pause that for now. Number two, we have given our tenants in the letters we mailed out to all of them, we gave them 5 options for rental assistance, either through their county, either through the Salvation Army, through, there's different options available for tenants. For example, like if people dial 211, there is the most up-to-date information on federal grants for rental assistance and other programs. And a lot of tenants don't even know about these things. So
Yeah.
we gave them all several options of who they can call, and a lot of the stimulus money is going to go to those programs because some of them, maybe have a certain budget, but those budgets will be increased, based off of the stimulus package. So we gave our tenants those links and phone numbers so that they can use those. And I think that was one of the big things we did. We've been very compassionate with the tenants instead of like very, very, black and white, very, rigid, I guess you could say, because this is a very uncertain time for them and for us. And it's, we're trying to be very understanding, but at the same time, we communicated with them that, hey, our bills are still due. Insurance still needs to be paid. Taxes need to be paid. Our bank to date has not told us that, we're going to be giving a forbearance. Our mortgage is still due. So we've just communicated with our tenants, told them these things so that they know where we're coming from. Ultimately, I think, we're going to see where things play out, on the 5th. I think a good portion of our tenants are on Social Security and disability, so they have fixed incomes that will not be affected by this. I think, with the checks that are being sent out, I think that'll help with some of their cash flow problems. But if people do have a solid issue and they have been furloughed or laid off from work, we will work with them during this time and offer payment plans. I think that's going to be something that will be common during this time, because if someone's paid on time for the past 24 months and they have no history of any issues, and then now they need some help during this time, we want to keep these people. We don't want high turnover in our parks. So
Correct.
that's a big part of what we're going to be doing. And through the letters we mailed out to our tenants, we also made sure that we have a corporate email address that's like corporate management @gmail.com. And we wanted to make sure that they had access to that so that they knew, hey, if you don't want to go, walk up to your manager's, office and ask for a payment plan or something like that, because I think there's like some, I don't know, intimidation or, what you want to call it. But I feel like some tenants, are very shy when it comes to money, and that's just either how they were raised or whatnot. But we wanted to give them an option to reach out to us, because I think communication is going to be very, very important during this time. And the people that communicate with us, we'll be willing to work with. So we gave them a corporate email address that's kind of something that they can avoid the face-to-face contact if needed to tell us what's going on.
Well, not just that. I mean, just even the the social distancing aspect of things, and not forcing them to actually have to have a in-person confrontation, or not necessarily confrontation, or just a meeting with the community manager, right? Where they could be potentially putting not just their own health at risk, but also the community manager and anyone else that might be around them. So, that's all great information. I appreciate you sharing that. And we've taken a very similar approach. We've already sent out a letter, leading with compassion. Sharing a lot of those resources that you outlined as well. Also, iterating that basically our obligations are still present, and that they have not been relieved of their obligation to pay rent. We have not proactively taken the approach of saying that we will work with them on a payment program. However, we have set up we call it the COVID-19 hotline. So we literally set up a dedicated phone number in the event that they're facing financial challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic, to call our hotline, and we literally have a person on our staff. She is the point person, and she's aware of what type of workout programs we'll offer. Basically, she's aware of the entire protocol, and so they will have a live person they can speak with at basically not any time of the day, but normal business hours, and then also on Saturdays to work through this challenge together. And then in addition to that, what we put together is, so this letter went out. They've received it about 4 days ago. Normally what we do in most states, other than New York's its own as far as like what their grace period looks like, but most states, rent's due on the 1st, it's late on the 6th. So normally, in a normal scenario, we would hand out a demand letter on the 6th, depending on the county or state it's in, would depend on when that would actually go to eviction. So, and what we've decided to do, instead of actually handing out a formal demand letter, assuming that they have not proactively communicated with us, respond to our letter, but yet haven't paid their rent, we're going to hand out a much more compassionate demand letter, not a legal form by any means, really just a reiteration of our original letter, but with one slight change. At the very end, simply states that, if we have not heard a response from you in the next 7 days, then, we'll be forced to take, necessary action. And, what that means to us and to them is that we will serve a formal eviction notice or demand letter notice 7 days from that point in time. And although there is a moratorium on evictions, I'm of the understanding, after studying the language in a lot of these different states, is that you could still file in most of the states. You can file, however, the courts aren't open and cases aren't being heard. And so we're of the mind that we surely don't want to lose tenants. We don't want to evict people. But however, if they're going to claim radio silence and not be proactive with communicating with us, we don't really have another option. And so, we'll essentially look to get in line with the court so that when they open back up, either hopefully we've worked out a payment plan by that point, or we at least won't be 3 or 4 months behind the 8 ball. And so again, it's not our intent. It's the last thing we want to do. We're making every attempt to open up that line of communication, work with the residents, and put a solution together that allows them to stay in their home and allows us to basically maintain our business. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. As you had mentioned, the only lenders that have put forth any proactive forbearance programs are the agency lenders, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and HUD. We do have a few of those loans, but a majority of our loans are not those. And so we've been trying to have proactive conversations with our lenders. We're not in a challenge situation today. We've got a good bit of cash on hand, not necessarily planning for an event like this, but we're in a good cash position. But, things could get fairly dire if 50% of our residents don't pay for 3 months, right? And so we're just trying to be ahead of the ball on this. And, I know that if this next month or two play out in a much more dire way than what we're anticipating, then everyone else is going to be calling their lender as well. And so we tried to get out and have those conversations ahead of time so that we're not on hold for 8 hours trying to get a hold of a representative, because I don't think banks will be ready for that influx either. They won't be prepared, just like in 2008 when all the defaults started happening. Loan mitigation departments didn't even exist. You couldn't get bankers on the phone. They were just drowning with calls. And so, again, just trying to get out in front of it. A few of the other things that we've done proactively, not necessarily as far as communicating with the tenants, but we've put a halt on all unnecessary CapEx projects. So road work, other than things that would pose a liability. So if we were going to repave an entire section of the park, now we're just going to go ahead and fill in any potholes or areas that would cause a liability, with the intent that if this blows over in the next couple of months, we'll resume normal operations and finish that project. Same thing goes with home renovations. At any one given time, we could have a dozen home renovations going, and we're trying to address it community by community. Some communities that we might only have one vacancy or two vacancies, and we've got a $7,000 or $8,000 renovation. We're just going to hold off on it right now. We're going to hold off and just kind of stand firm and see how the next couple of months play out, because that $7,000 or $8,000 could come in handy again should things get a little bit more dire than what we anticipate. So just crazy times that we find ourselves in, but the next couple of months are going to create a lot of challenges. Those who were already on an unstable foundation will find themselves in a precarious situation. I hope they make it through, but and not to be insensitive to this matter, because I'm not, because I'm in it myself. As far as we're going to feel some pain, I think there's going to be opportunities that come out on the other side. And so I'd love to get your take on that, Andrew. And we know that real estate lags behind behind the stock market. I mean, the pain that will be felt in commercial real estate, if all doesn't go accordingly, will be, many months down the road. You're talking probably minimum 4 or 5 months, and, we'll see that pain throughout the next probably 12 to 18 months. And so I'd love to get your perspective on what you think might play out over the next year or so, and if you think there's going to be opportunities that come out of it.
Definitely. And to piggyback on what you were saying about the COVID-19 hotline, I think that's brilliant. I really think that is a brilliant tip. One additional thing we did is on some of our parks, we use pay lease, and people can pay with credit cards, but they get charged a fee. So we're going to waive those credit card fees. That's one additional thing we did to try to encourage them to still pay. So
I'm glad you brought that up, and I want to let you finish. You're about to go on to what my original question was, but we actually have done the same thing, and I just failed to mention it. So we do use pay lease, and so we have waived that transaction fee, and we've basically our in the letter it basically stated that if they are not set up for for online payments, what have you, our hotline, the girl that's running our hotline will essentially give them instruction. They can walk them through it right then and there. All they got to do is call, and they can get them set up fairly easily. And then two of the other things actually that we're doing, this is important. I can't believe I forgot to mention this. This is incredibly important. I think that this will play out in the event that we need to speak to our banks about a forbearance or loan deferral program, or if we want to go down the road and have a little bit of a battle with our insurance company about business interruption and why this should or shouldn't be covered. I think there's going to be a lot of cases that play out over the coming years, not just in the real estate industry, but lodging and the restaurant industry, what have you, of big firms fighting or suing their insurance company due to this not falling underneath the umbrella of business interruption insurance. And again, I think there was just a case yesterday, and I forget the name of the restaurateur, but big restaurateur, billionaire, has already filed a suit against his insurance company, claiming that this should be covered underneath business interruption. So I think there's going to be a lot more of that. And so we want to make sure that we've got all the documentation in place so that we can, if we have real hardship, we can truly document it and prove it. And what that means to us is if our tenants reach out to us to facilitate a payment program, then we first have an application where they it's one page. It's very simple. Basically, it says, I've lost my job due to COVID-19. Check that box. I've lost this amount of income on a monthly basis. Check that box. It's very, very simple. Basically, it's stating the reason for their inability to pay that month, and that it is directly correlated to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then basically we'll either approve or disapprove that application. If it's due to COVID-19, it's approved. And then we'll work through a payment program, and we have a separate document for that payment program. And so they will agree on this payment program, what the monthly terms are, how long it's going to be for, when it's going to start. And then in addition to that, at the very end of it, there's and this is not necessarily enforceable, but it's just really to get them in the right mindset that they agree to basically make our company whole, or make their rent whole once they receive any of the stimulus funds and or unemployment benefits. And so again, that's not really enforceable, but we want to get them in the right frame of mind that, look, again, we're in this together. We'll work with you, but you got to work with us. And I want to put it in writing. That way, in the event we have to go to our insurer, we have to go to the banks, we've got documentation, we've got it all in place. It's stored. We can easily whip out a file and say, here are the 18 hardships we've had in this particular community, and this is why we're applying for a forbearance or loan deferral program, what have you. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. I don't know if you have something formal like that in place. If not, I'd be more than happy to share with you, Andrew, and anyone else as well. In fact, I posted our main letter. I posted on one of the MHP forums on Facebook, and so. If anyone listening to this, if they would like us to share the different documents that we've created on our side, they can literally just go to the Contact Us page on our Sunrise Capital Investors website and send an inquiry, and we'll be sure to send it over to you. So with that, I interrupt you, Andrew. Yeah. I'm sorry, bud. You were going to answer my original question. But
that was great. That was fantastic. I love that hotline idea. That's very cool. But yeah, how I see this playing out, long term, and how commercial real estate kind of lags behind the stock market and things like that. I do think it'll be a while before we see anything from this, but I do think that it's somewhat inevitable based off of, how long people have been out of work and how, a lot of small businesses are shut down right now. I'm thinking it's going to be more like 18 to 24 months down the road before we see, any sort of discount on pricing and cap rates going up, something like that. But I think it'll also depend on the interest rates. I mean, what do you guys thinking the rates are going to do as we get through this?
Well, I think once everything kind of stabilizes, rates will have to remain low. I mean, it's inevitable that they'll have to remain low. But right now there's a number of lenders that have fallen out of the space. I mean, it's so volatile. Even Fannie and Freddie, they don't know really where to throw the dart onto the board, and so rates have gone up over the short term. CMBS has basically dried up completely, or basically they've come off. They've pulled all the options off the plate. And so, I'm guessing that even local banks, I haven't applied for a loan in the past, couple of weeks, but I'm guessing even local banks are treading very cautiously. And so, but I think when this all shakes out, that the only way that the quantitative easing actually will have any type of positive benefit is if rates remain low. I mean, if you want to instill the confidence in the consumers and the buyers out there and keep the economy afloat and chugging forward like it was prior to this pandemic, then the only way that's going to happen is if rates remain low. If they go up, then it's going to send another shockwave through the world, or, through the country at least, and ultimately we'll have a complete reverse effect. Again, I'm not an economist, and so, but that's how I feel, and I think that's ultimately the reason behind of all the quantitative easing and the stimulus package that's been put forth. So I guess I don't know. I'd love your thoughts on it as well.
No, I agree. I think rates will stay low. To piggyback on what you were saying, I do have a agency loan in progress right now. It's a refinance actually, that is like it's like at the finish line. It's like right there, and got an email a few nights ago that Fannie is requiring us to at closing secure a reserve of 18 months of interest payments, a full year of taxes, a full year of insurance, replacement reserves for 12 months. They're making us keep that aside for 18 months, at closing. So that obviously, cuts into the proceeds we were hoping for. So that's obviously makes things a little more difficult compared to the way they were a month ago.
How about the rate? Did they adjust the rate, or?
They didn't adjust the rate. The rate is still really low. It's sub 4. Okay. So it, but it's right there at the finish line, and you can see how things change. Like they say, it's not over till the fat lady sings.
Yeah. And that might not be the end of the world in the refinance. Again, a little bit of a different situation on a refi. I don't know your exact situation of, what expectations of investors and things of that nature. But that really changes the game on an acquisition. If that gets thrown on your lap shortly thereafter, tying something up and moving, toward the funding process. So very much changes the ultimate outcome of that deal and what the returns look like if you've got to raise another couple $100,000 of capital to get the deal done. So very interesting times. And again, I think that it will all shake out. It's just no one knows right now, right? I mean, it's just uncertain times, not just for us on this call, not for those that are just listening, but everyone in this world, gosh, even the President of the United States, everyone, even the medical experts. It's so much uncertainty, and it's just going to be a day-by-day endeavor. And again, this is not a my problem or your problem, Andrew. This is a world problem. We're kind of fighting this battle together, and again, we're going to learn a lot over the coming months. And I don't know if you were an investor back in 07 and 08, Andrew, but I went through that time. I had been an investor about 7 years prior to that, and went through the crash, and it put me in financial ruins. It was a very challenging time, but I learned so many damn lessons out of that challenging time. While I was going through it, couple years thereafter, because it lingered on for many, many years for me to get back and rebuild things. I learned a lot of lessons along the way, and that challenging time, I wouldn't change it for the world. If you'd asked me in 2009 if I would change it, I would have been, hell yes, I wish that wouldn't have happened. But now I look back and I realize that it all happened for a reason. It's made me a stronger investor, much more conservative in nature. And so I'm confident that we're going to make it through this period. And I wish everyone else that's listening, and Andrew, including you, that everyone, pushes through this and they come out stronger on the other side. So, but time will tell, and we're all in this together.
I agree. Yeah, we're in this together. I do think, again, this is a black swan event. I think on the banks, from the bank side of things, the people that we've contacted, they've been more than willing to work with us. They understand this, and the bankers have even told us, they're saying, hey, we learned a lot in 2008. We don't want these assets back. We will work with you. Let's just communicate and just the same thing we're positioning with our tenants. Let's just communicate and talk on April 6th. So April 6th is going to be a big day. I think we'll know a lot more then.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, there was two main topics I wanted to chat with you about today, and we've pretty much run out of time. And so I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask you to agree to come back on another show here in the next coming couple of weeks, Andrew. And maybe we can do a brief update on how these couple of weeks have transpired for your business, and I can share the same. But I really wanted to chat about part of your business model that I think is unique in comparison to the many others that are in the industry, especially of your size, is that one of the big opportunities in our business is finding parks that have infill opportunities. Infill meaning that there's vacant lots or expansion possibilities where you can add additional lots and essentially bringing homes in. While that seems theoretically very simple, there's a lot of logistics behind the scenes, dealing with local companies that can be not so reliable. There's crossing of state lines issues. I mean, there's just a multitude of issues as far as if you buy the home, getting the darn thing delivered, getting it set up, and having that to be where it's an efficient process. And what Andrew has done is he essentially has built, or I guess from scratch. I guess you say you built it. Maybe you bought into an existing. But my understanding is that you literally went out and built your own toter company. Toters are the trucks the little semi trucks that deliver these mobile homes. And Andrew is the proud owner of, I don't know if more than one, but I know you own one toter truck, and you've got a crew that essentially are the ones that are bringing your homes in and getting them set up for you, which eliminates all the variabilities of using outside companies that are deemed to be unreliable for the most part. So, and I wish we could speak about it now because I think it's an incredibly important topic, but I'm going to hold off on that. I'm just going to make that, leave it with that to pique everyone's interest so that you'll have to tune into the next episode where Andrew and I can go more in depth about that. But with that, Andrew, I guess the last thing I have here before we, wrap it up for the day is if there's any words of wisdom that you might be willing to leave with any of the new or aspiring park investors that are listening into this, this interview here that might motivate and inspire them as they progress in their MHP investing career, what would those words of wisdom be?
Yeah, I would start off by saying, hey, during this time, if you do own properties, stay liquid, take the advice, that both I and Kevin gave you. I think that's a great plan moving forward to try to control what we can control. But after this, for aspiring investors, I would just say that, starting out, one of my biggest worries was, raising capital for deals. And, I had a mind shift where, it's not really about the capital. If the deal is good enough, the money will come. So I would just say focus more so on finding the deals. I mean, I have investors reaching out, even in the current, business environment because they want to get their money out of the stock market, out of the Wall Street casino, and they want to put it into, affordable housing. So I think there is money out there. That shouldn't be your primary concern. Your main concern should be finding properties. And for your first deal, I think you should focus on a value add deal. Because there's going to be a lot of meat on the bone and you're going to learn a lot. So that would be my advice for someone starting out.
No, that's fantastic. I appreciate that, Andrew. And folks, if you want to learn more about what Andrew's got going on, you can go visit his website. You can find him at keelteam.com, and his last name is spelled Keel. So keelteam.com. And Andrew, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Again, we'll have to not make it be a year and a half or however long it's been to get you back on. In fact, again, you promised, so I got you on the record saying that you're going to come back on in a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about your toter business and learn the ins and outs and all the good, the bad, the ugly about it. So with that being said, brother, I wish you the best over these coming weeks, and just want to thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing all your insight and knowledge with the listeners here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'll look forward to our next interview.
Alrighty, guys, well, that's all we have. So really appreciate you joining here. And just want to remind you to stop by the Mobile Home Park Academy website at mobilehomeparkacademy.com. And you can listen to all of our previous podcast shows. We've got more than 100 there for your listening pleasure. So if you have an interest in getting into this business, I definitely start there. It's all free content, and we've got, nearly 100 hours of it. You can also download our popular ebook. It's free. It's called The 21 Biggest Mistakes Investors Make When Purchasing Their First Mobile Home Park and How to Avoid Them. I'd say that it's a required read, guys. Easy read. These are the 21 mistakes I came up with when we were a couple years into this business that I saw that we made that I wish I would have avoided, or if I wish I would have known when I first got into the space. So go grab it. It's free. And if you don't, then I told you so. So with that being said, guys, thanks for stopping by and joining us here at the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. This is your host, Kevin Buck, signing off. You guys take care.
Congratulations for taking the necessary steps to achieving massive success through the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Be sure to visit our website, mobilehomeparkacademy.com, to download your free digital ebook version of the 21 biggest mistakes investors make when buying their first mobile home park and how you can avoid them. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our free monthly mobile home park investing newsletter, which is jammed full of valuable tips, tricks, and strategies to help you accelerate your path to success as a mobile home park investor. More information about this podcast and its hosts can be found by visiting mobilehomeparkacademy.com.